Hello and welcome to Living the Dream for General Practitioners, the podcast for doctors and clinic leaders who want to learn about pathways, strategies and opportunities for living and working in Australia. Join me, Gemma Goff, and my expert guests as we share stories, unlock the secrets to recruitment success, share tips for moving across the world, navigating new cultures and so much more. This show is brought to you by Health Recruitment Australia. Now sit back, relax and enjoy this episode. Hello everyone and welcome to our last episode in the GP Recruitment Fundamentals podcast series. I thought it would be a great way to finish off the series by hearing from a GP who has recently moved from overseas and can essentially summarise their journey, the highs and lows of the process, things they know now that they wish they'd known through the migration process, and how they feel about the move now they've settled into Australian lifestyle. So with this in mind, I'm delighted to be joined today by Dr. Polly Large, who migrated to Adelaide from the UK in 2023 and joins the AHA Seaford Meadows Day and Night Clinic, a fabulous clinic in South Adelaide. In fact, some of our listeners will recall we spoke to Jessica McIver, their practice manager, in an earlier episode of this series. So Polly, welcome and thank you for joining me today.
Hello, no problem. Hi.
Great. So I thought, Polly, perhaps we would just jump straight in and maybe you could share with our listeners what prompted you to look into a move to Australia and why Adelaide was the right state or city for you.
So I was locuming before I came out here to Australia, and so I was really fortunate to be in a position where I could easily relocate and experience work elsewhere in another country. I had visited Australia on my medical elective about 8 years ago, and I knew I really enjoyed my time there and wanted to go there again. Adelaide itself to me seemed to fit quite well. It had rural areas quite close to the city centre. So that was very good for finding work. It's got lots of nice suburbs, lots of nice beaches, and really good access to local hiking and wildlife, national parks. So it just fit the things that I enjoy doing outside of work as well as work as well.
Sounds great. Sounds lovely. So when you sort of had made the decision that migrating was on the cards for you, what made you sort of work with a recruitment agency and what were you looking for in terms of support from the agency?
I think I realised it was going to be a big move, and so having support from an agency to sort of take me through all the steps was going to be helpful, as I had no friends who had done the same thing myself. I did a sort of search online and contacted a couple of agencies and did appreciate ones that asked me about myself, the types of locations that I wanted to work in. And it was really nice to have agencies that were quite responsive in communications, and both sort of via email, telephone, and were sort of keeping in touch. And it's equally getting me excited and thinking, it's going to become a reality because they're actually sort of engaging with the process. So I think having an engaging recruitment agency is really, really helpful. Really helpful.
Excellent. That's great feedback. So we've touched a little bit on earlier podcasts in regards to sort of EPIC verification and ARPA and college applications. It's a lot of paperwork and juggling that with sort of everyday life and doing your locum work would have been quite a challenge. I know when we speak to GPs looking to make the move, they perhaps underestimate the paperwork that's involved and the various stages to the process. Have you got any top tips on how to manage this?
Again, I think this is really helpful, having a good recruitment agency, particularly one that's quite proactive and checks in with you regularly, as I said, just to see how things are going, see how the paperwork's going and see how the stages are for you. I also found it really helpful when they were happy to complete some paperwork for me, bits they were able to do, because it meant that I could sort of carry on with my normal sort of locum work and things. And it was also really useful when they were able to chase responses, because you can give permissions for the agencies to do that. And again, that was really, really helpful, and to hear the feedback from them, for them to chase it there. And it obviously makes a big difference with the time zones as well. So they can get in contact when you're at work. And yeah, I think definitely having a good recruitment agency helps with that. I'd say a top tip would be to give yourself plenty of time. to complete the whole process in advance of when you're planning to move. Just timing's a massive thing, as you've sort of mentioned, and there is a lot of paperwork, but having support and giving yourself time is the best thing.
And what sort of time frame was it for you, Polly, from sort of deciding to, I think we'll move to Australia to actually being here and consulting? Sort of what was your time frame?
I think it was at least a year. I think there was some people do it quicker from speaking to colleagues, and some people take longer. I'm actually completely forgotten now because at the time it seemed never ending, but I'm here. So it was at least a year. And I think there were a few steps back where there was maybe more information they needed from me. But I got there in the end, and I think the recruitment agency was really helpful at finding where the agencies, whether that was Epic or Art Pro or the college, what else they needed from me in order to get that process doing. So again, if I hadn't had a recruitment agency with me, I think I probably would be longer. So
yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure there's GPs who've probably sort of give up halfway because it's just too hard without the support of an agency who sort of do this day in, day out. So agency support is certainly worth considering. So how did your recruiter work with you in regards to sort of sharing information about clinics that were available? So they'd obviously had a conversation with you about what you were looking for in a clinic and location and such like. So once you've given that information, what happened then? Did they sort of send you an email with lots of options for you? How did that work?
Yeah, so I got an email from the agencies with options of jobs that were available. And then I had a look online and tried to find the locations, looked at sort of patient reviews of these locations. And then the agencies actually organised interviews with myself and either staff, sort of clinicians from the practices, or the managerial staff as well. And we had, I made sure that I had Zoom meetings to sort of speak to people face to face with all the clinics. And I actually did contact every clinic that I was offered just to get a feel for them, so I could compare and find one that was going to suit me.
Yeah, and they're all different. They all offer something different for everyone, which I think is why it's important that you build those relationships with your recruiter so they know what you're looking for, so that you're at least put in touch with the ones that, there is potential. So that's great. In addition to the paperwork side of things, there's quite a lot of other things in the UK that you need to get into order before you make the big move. Things like visas, for example. So did you liaise with an agent to support you with your visa application?
I actually didn't. I think I was fortunate enough to find the process following the government website quite straightforward. And I did come out with my partner as well. So we're both on the same visa, so that probably helped and gave me a different pathway that others might follow. I know people do value the support of someone to help with the visa, or they can do. I think I was in a fortunate position. It was quite self-explanatory and we were able to do it ourselves.
Excellent. So moving house, selling your car, personal items. Did you put things into storage in case you wanted to go home, or how did you make the decision as to what was, to in the keep pile and to the sell pile?
So I think we realised it was a big move, and we planned to essentially store some things with family and to explore shipping options when we were in Australia once settled, and to sort of work out what might have been worth bringing over. And I think that that's worked well for us. We've actually found that the sort of charity shop secondhand selling thing is a really, really big movement here, but it's brilliant. And so actually we've found that we've been very comfortable with that approach. And it's really just sentimental items and things that maybe we will ship over. I did sell my car before coming over, but that was so that we could purchase one when we arrived, because I knew I'd have to commute by a car to work. So that was the main big sell for me.
Yeah, excellent. Did you have sort of a list of things that you were going to have to complete in Australia that you needed to tick off prior to your move? So, was there anything that sort of slipped your mind that you didn't realise that you would need to do before you moved? And did you need to sort of come out to Australia beforehand, or were you able to sort of do everything when you got here after your big move?
I think, again, I was quite fortunate that I didn't have to come out in advance. I know that some people have had to come out for the in-person checks for things. But I think with the timings of how things work for me, I was actually happy to come here and from that point then stay and wait until working. So that worked well for me. So actually I found liaising with the recruiter and the clinic from the UK was actually okay for me, and we were able to establish ourselves quite well when we arrived.
That's great. In terms of, just for our listeners, actually, there's been a change in the ARPRA regulations that as of the 18th of December 2023, you actually don't need to come out to Australia and do your in-person ID checks anymore. So that's a great help for clinicians that are looking to migrate. So it can all be done virtually now online. So that's a great help from ARPRA to streamline that process a little bit. So that's good news. So did you sort of allow time after you'd finished up your locum contracts in the UK to sort of tie up loose ends before you moved here? Sort of what sort of things were on your last week of being in the UK that you needed to tick off?
I think I gave myself a couple of weeks in between working and being here, like you said, just to tie things up. So it was about sort of putting my things into storage with family, seeing friends, seeing family. And then it was more just the logistical things that we were thinking of in the last week. So things like when we arrived at the airport, who was going to pick us up? Like, how are we going to get transport? How are we going to get a SIM card for a phone? How we were going to get a bank account, and what money we were going to come over with in cash just for those first expenditures. So I think it was more the logistics of actually day-to-day living as soon as we set foot to get ourselves rolling, get ourselves settled. And I think, again, that worked really well. I know we spent our first week here frantically looking for cars, and once that was sorted, it was all good from there.
Makes it a bit easier once you've got the transport and you can get around, isn't it? Adelaide has great public transport, but it's certainly easier if you've got your own car that you can go off and explore as well. So that's an advantage, yeah. So when you arrived in Australia, how did you feel?
Tired, I will say initially, but I think I was very much sort of looking forward to the opportunity ahead. I think, as I'm sure you've alluded to, with all the paperwork and things, it almost doesn't feel real. And actually, when you've arrived, it's like, oh, okay, here I am. So, there was a lot of excitement. And I think at that point as well, it was very good to have a sort of a proactive clinic, a proactive sort of recruitment agency that could then support me through those next steps. So I did the in-person checks as soon as I arrived, and then had to wait for the next steps before I could actually start work. So having that at that point was really helpful as well.
Excellent, good. So a big question would be, is there anything you know now that you wish you had known prior to, during, or after your move that no one thought to tell you or assumed you already knew?
I think it is the time element of things. I think people say, oh, it's going to take time, and you're like, oh, okay, yes, I understand, but actually it does. And I think as soon as that suggestion comes into your mind, or you think, oh, actually, do I want to go out? Just start looking and start sort of the application process going then, and give yourself plenty of time so that actually you can enjoy the process. You can still enjoy working wherever you are before you move. And I think don't get too worried if there's blips along the way. Some paperwork might not get completed correctly, but it can be amended. You can get the support how to amend it, and it's a well-trodden path, and there's support there for you. So actually, it's just give yourself time and don't stress too much.
Yeah, and leaning on your recruiter and the clinic that you're going to be working for is key, because they've been through this many times before, so they're a good support to you. So how is life in Australia? Does it meet all your hopes and dreams so far?
So I'd say, I'm really enjoying some aspects of it, especially the autonomy and sort of choosing the hours when I work. It's really beneficial. Australia itself has obviously loads of great cities, loads of great places to explore, and I very much enjoyed so far in between working, going to visit some of those places, and just making the most of being here. I do feel in myself a bit healthier now I'm here, actually. I started running, and that's something that I've wanted to do for a long time. Completed some local half marathons, and I have to say running on a beach is quite a novelty. So very much enjoying the lifestyle that we're able to live at the moment.
That's amazing. Well done. So any GPs that are thinking about making the move, what would you say to them?
I would say, yeah, if you're fortunate in a position to be able to do that, I'd say give yourself time, find a good recruiter, and good luck, essentially.
Absolutely. And be patient. Be patient.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think all of that information, Polly, has been really helpful to our listeners. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I'm so pleased that Move Down Under has worked out for you. Thanks again for your time. And thank you to all of our listeners for joining us for this GP Recruitment Fundamental podcast series. We hope that you found this series helpful and that it's given you a bit of excitement to make that first step into migrating and starting your new life down under. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Living the Dream for General Practitioners. Don't forget to subscribe on your favourite podcast player so you don't miss an episode. At Health Recruitment Australia, we want to see more happy GPs, thriving medical practices and healthy communities. If you'd like to join us on our mission, visit healthrecruitmentaustralia.com.au to explore opportunities and get in touch. Thanks for listening.